Applause, Dr. Toyin, Sanni.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's such an honor and a blessing to be here at Nigeria's foremost platform for the discourse of national issues. I honor all the great leaders and speakers gathered here and every single one that is here, and I wish you all happy Independence Day. I thank Pastor Poju Oyemade for the great opportunity to be here, and especially for facilitating and sustaining this excellent initiative that provides a platform to engage the highest level of human endeavor, which is thinking. You are a great leader, and you are a great thinker. I listen to you regularly on Instagram. You're a great, and I've also heard you speak at a platform like this. You're a great thinker, and it is no wonder that you gravitate towards thinkers and thought leaders, bringing great minds together to contribute to the crafting of solutions to our multifaceted national problems. I am really honored, and briefly, I would like to contribute my quota to a topic of great significance on a challenge which continues to bedevil our beloved nation, Nigeria, today on its 64th Independence Day, even as it has for almost 6.5 decades now. I would like my slides to be put up, and I want to, by way of disclosure, I have the slides. And I will try to do a combination of directing you to the slides. Yes, there's a copy in front of me, whilst also talking to the notes that I have before me. The simple and yet all difficult question is, how can we unlock Nigeria's economic potential? Okay, I think I got that. How can we unlock Nigeria's economic potential such that the narrative about our dear nation will shift from that of missed opportunities and unrealized potentials represented by an unharnessed bank of natural resources, wide expanse of arable land adorned by the promise of a youthful and dynamic population, to that of a nation of realized promises, a proud and self-sufficient citizenry standing tall amongst the committee of nations. I dare ask, is this possible? And if this holy grail that we have sought for 64 years now has eluded us so far, let me ask again, is this possible? Has it been done before? And how? What would it mean for the average Nigerian if it were to happen? And finally, what would it take to make it happen for you and for me? Let's explore some of these questions together. So first, what we're seeking to do, which is to unlock the economic potential of Nigeria, has it been done before? Nigeria, with a population of over 200 million and abundant natural resources, has been compared to structural peers like Brazil, Indonesia, and Malaysia. These nations share similar demographic profiles, diversified resource endowments, including crude oil, favorable agroclimatic conditions, abundant low-cost labor, strategic geographic locations, and deep water ports. Whilst in the early 1970s, Nigeria's living standards were comparable to these countries, since then, a significant divergence in economic performance has occurred, with Nigeria now lagging far behind these erstwhile peers. A closer examination of GDP per capita, economic growth rates, and poverty levels highlights Nigeria's missed potential. Countries like Indonesia have made substantial strides in reducing poverty and unemployment through, remember the question we're asking is, has this been done before? Through industrialization and infrastructure development. In contrast, Nigeria's economic performance continues to lag behind, despite its vast oil wealth and youthful population. While all exploits dominated merchandise exports in all three countries until the mid-1980s, their participation in oil exports significantly declined by nearly half in Malaysia and Indonesia in the years that followed. In contrast, Nigeria has continued to rely heavily on fuel exports, with our contribution remaining consistently high. Indonesia, for example, with a comparable population size and natural resources, has a GDP per capita of $4,941, more than double that of Nigeria's $1,600. Brazil, with similar agricultural and energy resources, has a GDP per capita of $10,000. This disparity highlights Nigeria's struggle to turn its natural wealth into broad-based economic growth and prosperity. Okay, I'm very sorry for my short-sightedness. I am finding it easier to turn around than to follow. Now I've gone too far. Okay. Please pardon me. I might end up doing what we all say. Next slide, please. Do I have help? Is there somebody in the media that can help me? Because I think now I'm just turning all this in the opposite direction. Please, if you can help me, I'm going back to the slide where I'm still making the comparisons. So Malaysia and Indonesia proactively pursued economic diversification through well-crafted and faithfully implemented industrial policies. In Malaysia, the first industrial master plan in 1986 to 1995 laid the foundation for the development of manufacturing industries and promoted the processing of natural resources. The plan strategically targeted sectors with potential for import substitution, high export value, and higher value-added activities such as petrochemicals, refined petroleum, palm oil, rubber gloves, tires, and prophylactics. This approach helped to reduce the overdependence on upstream commodities and fostered more balanced economic growth. Now, before I go into how would success look like for Nigeria, I want us to just look at some of the comparative graphs that I have there. So we're looking here. Okay, it's gone away from behind me. I'm very sorry, I'm short-sighted. So in spite of my glasses, I still can't see what I have there, which is why I'm turning around and hoping that, yes, this will come on. So if you look at education and you look at literacy rates, you can see that we lag far behind all these. You look at health and life expectancy, again, we're at 54.6%, whereas Malaysia is at 76. We have seen these statistics over and over again, but I'm going somewhere. And then you look at access to finance, and that's really where our position is so far removed. So 13% and Malaysia 117%. That means that an innovator, a startup in Malaysia has more money than they actually need. They have access to more money than they actually need. And by the way, this is as a percentage of GDP, 117%, and we're at 13%. And then ICT smartphone penetration. We like to boast about the level of smartphone penetration in Nigeria. Unfortunately, we're still lagging behind our peers. Now, I'm going to the next question that I want us to look at. Is there a Nigerian dream? How would success impact the life of the ordinary Nigerian? So I'm asking you this question. Is there a Nigerian dream? You know, I was in the US earlier this year, and I was actually invited by the American Dream. I don't know why they thought I had an American dream. I'm not American, but I was invited by, there's actually an institute in charge of the American Dream. And their job is to study whether the American Dream is growing or it's receding, and what exactly they can do to make the American Dream a reality for Americans. So the American Dream is a real project. And they asked me to give, I gave an interview, and they asked me what my American dream was. And I had to find, but the point I'm making is that this is a country that everybody envies for so many reasons, and yet they are actively committed to making things better for their people. So I want to ask again, is there a Nigerian dream? The Nigerian dream would be the innate belief in the right of every Nigerian to aspire to attain financial success on the assumption of the existence of equal opportunities and meritocracy. If it exists, it would be somewhat like the American Dream, a national ethos of the United States that states that every person has the freedom and opportunity to succeed and attain a better life for themselves. Can we say that right now about our nation? The concept of a Nigerian dream is elusive, but if it exists, it is likely tied to economic opportunity, social mobility, and personal achievement, similar again to the American dream, but shaped by Nigeria's unique challenges. You know, when I was growing up in this country, I watched a lot of television, and now we still watch a lot of Nollywood movies. And if I were to craft the Nigerian dream according to Nollywood, and I'm coming back to a point that you made, sir, which is that we have to pay attention to the things that we had not paid attention to before. What is the message that we are passing to the people that are coming before about their role in creating opportunities for us as a country? So back, if I were to describe the Nigerian dream according to Nollywood, it would be pretty girl comes to Lagos, stands at the side of the street, on her way somewhere. She's very poor, she's in raggedy clothes, but then this very rich man pulls to a halt beside her, invites her to come into his car, takes her shopping. That shopping scene is always in every rags to riches story. Am I lying? Takes her to the supermarket, and then she picks things, and she picks things, and she picks this, and she picks that, and he pays for it, and they live happily ever after. Is that the Nigerian dream? So what is the Nigerian dream, or what should be at the heart of the Nigerian dream? At the heart of this pursuit should be the tireless, relentless effort to overcome barriers and create opportunity where none seemingly exists. Nigerians are constantly innovating and striving to survive in a system that often seems designed to hold them back. The popular culture of multiple side hustles is not just a trend, it is a reflection of how dogged your average Nigerian is in their quest for economic independence and success. The Nigerian dream, therefore, should be about entrepreneurship, creativity, education, and ultimately the creation of a better present than your parents' past, or a better future for your children than your present. Than your past and your present. However, it is often constrained by systemic problems like unemployment, poor infrastructure, and unstable or unfavorable economic policies. A case in point that we're facing right now: high inflation, high interest rates, and domestic currency devaluation, all of which are today the reality and perhaps the nightmare of small businesses. In essence, the Nigerian dream could be defined as the pursuit of prosperity, upward mobility, and the ability to succeed regardless of our background. But unlike in many successful economies, achieving this dream in Nigeria often feels like a matter of luck than a result of deliberate planning or policy support. The Nigerian dream envisions a future where each generation surpasses the achievements of the last in terms of income, education, and overall quality of life. However, recent data paints a sobering picture of limited economic mobility in Nigeria. Sadly, the scale of poverty in the country is staggering. The number of Nigerians living below the poverty line has grown from 70 million in 2010 to an estimated 109 million in 2023, placing Nigeria among the nations with the largest poor populations globally. This trend is further reflected in Nigeria's Human Development Index, HDI ranking, where it's placed 161 out of 193 countries in 2022. Many young Nigerians face the same, if not worse, economic challenges as their parents. Unemployment, underemployment, and inadequate access to quality education hinder their progress. These increase the risk, unfortunately, of many youths resorting to crime and many migrating away in search of greener pastures. Harsh and deteriorating macroeconomic conditions further complicate the pursuit of economic mobility for younger Nigerians. For instance, prices of imported used cars, once a symbol of financial progress, have soared beyond the reach of the average youth. So you find Nigerians well into their 30s, approaching their 40s, coming into their 40s, who are graduates and have been working since they graduated, and they still cannot afford to buy a second-hand used car that has probably been used for 20 years in another economy. This example, amongst others, illustrates how economic goals are becoming increasingly unattainable as the goalposts continue to shift. Despite these challenges, I'm coming a little bit to the good news. Despite these challenges, Nigerians remain resilient, excelling in various sectors, from the thriving markets in Lagos, Kano, and Aba, to the unicorn startup communities in Yaba, Ilupeju, and Ikeja, providing cutting-edge fintech solutions to the bustling creative industry in Nollywood, on Instagram and TikTok, and that are making waves globally. Perhaps burdened by these inspiring stories, a growing number of youths have turned to entrepreneurship. So today, 84% of employed Nigerians are self-employed. I think we can clap for ourselves. Thank you. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, I personally admire our millennial and Gen Zs. I admire them so much. They're working so hard. Working so hard to make a future where they cannot take anything for granted again. So are there pathways to realizing the Nigerian dream? What should be done to unlock the economic potential of Nigeria and make the Nigerian dream a reality? It needs deliberate planning and coordinated actions. The success stories of countries like Singapore and South Korea, oh my goodness. Yes, somebody is helping me. Thank you. God bless you. Yeah. The success stories of countries like Nigeria and Singapore and South Korea show that sustainable economic process is not accidental. It is built on strategic policies, investment in education, and economic diversification. Nigeria has the natural resources and human capital to thrive, but our path forward must address the challenge of the big elephant in the room, competitiveness, as a nation in its bid to retain and attract back its best human capital resources. Nations are built by people. Let me say that again. Nations are built by people. So if you lose the best of the best that you have to other economies, who then is going to build the nation? Just like a company vies against domestic and international competitors for the best talent, so must Nigeria strive hard to retain its brilliant and most productive talents, or risk being left with the least creative, least productive, and most criminally minded remnants. I would like to repeat myself there. The same way I run a business, and I know that I am competing with other companies for the best talents. And I know that those who will win in my line of business are those who attract and retain the best people. And today, I now recognize that I'm no longer competing with other Nigerian institutions. I'm now competing with international institutions, because my people get offers from abroad and they get up and they go. My people sometimes would get an offer from abroad, and they will even live in Nigeria and earn dollars. So the same way I, as a business leader and business owner, have to face the reality that I must be competitive. It's the same way that Nigeria now needs to know that it's not everybody that was born in Nigeria or born to Nigerian parents or has a Nigerian passport that will choose to stay in Nigeria or choose to work in Nigeria or choose to retain a Nigerian identity. That choice has to be based on competitiveness. What are the most compelling factors for human capital competitiveness? Having established that nations and countries and economies are built by human beings and talents, the first one, and in coming, putting this together, I started looking at myself as an individual. And you can look at yourself as an individual and say, if you are making a choice as to where you want to live and where you want to put your family, where you want to start your business, where you want to grow, what will be my order of priority? Number one, security. I will not go where I don't feel safe. So, unless and until we fix our security challenges as a nation, we have not even begun on the journey of competitiveness as a nation. So security of lives and property, the beginning of the Nigerian dream, and to reverse the massive brain drain and Japa syndrome has to be security. Can our people be made safe again in our territory? Can our children be safe again in our schools? Can our streets be free of robbers and kidnappers? When I move away from physical security, the next thing will have to be food security and primary health care. Presently, not just our present is threatened by poverty and lack of food security. Unfortunately, there are huge implications for our future. 1 in 3 Nigerian-born children under the age of 5 is stunted physically and intellectually due to malnutrition, according to UNICEF. Similarly, and our convener mentioned the issue of productivity and national productivity. Similarly, a child born in Nigeria, according to UNICEF, as of 2022, is 36%. It's going to be 36% as productive as a child born in more developed and supportive environments. For me, that's a big shock. So if you give birth to a child in Nigeria, no matter the genes they inherit, no matter how hard they work, they have 1/3 the productive capacity of a child born in the more supportive economies of the world. So they are, look at it this way, they have 10 fingers. 7 fingers have been crippled and made unproductive for reasons that have nothing to do with the child or with the parents of the child. That is scary. The next thing is education. So after you are safe and you have been fed, the next thing you look at is education. It's a critical tool for breaking the cycle of poverty and achieving social mobility in Nigeria. For many families, investing in education is seen as the primary route to a better future. So my father was born into a family, polygamous family, very, very poor family in his village. And he got to go to school because he was a son and the first son. So the family had to ration resources and decide who will go to school and who will not go to school. And that singular decision of giving him an education made a difference to his lifestyle, made a difference to the lives of his children, made a difference to the lives of his children's children. But do you know that increasingly, unfortunately, education is no longer that differentiator that it used to be in Nigeria? Because you now have people who graduate and go out of school, and years and years and years, decades after, there is no difference to their life. What can actually make the difference? And that takes me to the next point: social mobility. This refers to, oh yes, by the way, 20 million children out of school. The figure has increased since 2022. 20 million children out of school in Nigeria. Third largest in the world. Unfortunately, the other economies that came first and second are economies that are multiples of our size. So if you're looking at it as a proportion of the number of children, we're actually number 1 in the world in terms of children out of school. Now, let's come to social mobility. Will an education alone make a difference between you and, let's say, your father before you? Social mobility refers to the possibility for individuals and families to move upward or away from their erstwhile social status. Specifically, it refers to how a person's socioeconomic situation improves or declines relative to that of their parents or throughout their lifetime. May be measured in terms of earnings, your income, your social class, health, and education. Sadly, majority of Nigerians are trapped from cradle to grave in a vicious cycle of poverty perpetuated by low to zero social mobility, a self-perpetuating cycle. A study by Professor Raj Shetty of Harvard University and the Brookings Institute concluded that the community where you grew up is a key determinant of your life's outcome and prospects for upward mobility, with the 4 top factors being: number 1, poverty rates in your community; number 2, stability of your family structure, broken home, dysfunctional homes versus the other; access to better schools; and then the 4th one that really drove it home for me is social capital, or economic connectedness to high-income homes, and it was found to be the biggest factor. Essentially, they found that it is hard or near impossible to aspire to what you have never seen. So if you grew up in a poor community, and everybody in that community is poor like you and hungry like you, and you never get a chance to visit the people that are higher up or to see how the other side lives, your chances of getting out of that cycle are very, very low. So it sets me thinking about some of our practices in Nigeria, such as the one in which you take a child from the village and bring him to serve in your home as a house help, or somebody from your community, comes to serve in your home as maids. I began to realize that those things are not necessarily negative. It is very important for a person to have a chance to see how the other half live, because that's where aspiration begins from. And so you now had programs in the US that were very deliberate about desegregating the minorities and the socially excluded, looking for ways in which you can embed them into communities so that they can have a way of seeing. So sometimes sports, for example, the ability to go and play sports with children from a richer school, a richer community. So it's high time we brought the children from Agege to come and play football with the children in Ikoyi and Victoria Island, because as they begin to build some kind of connection and relationship and exposure, the chances of having a future is better. There is something called the lost instance concept, and the concept essentially says, again, it has been found that you are 10 times more likely to be an inventor if you come from the top 1% family. So what then happens, it means that there are millions and millions of people who have not invented anything, not because they are not ordinarily capable of inventing, but they've never even been raised in an environment in which they can think of the possibility of inventing. For me, I run a charity. For some of the Nigerians here, it begins to stimulate your ideas as to the things that you could do. When a study that was done in the US on communities that had the highest and the lowest level of social mobility. So they took the ages and the income of people and compared with the income of their parents at that age. And a city called Charlotte had the lowest. Incidentally, that city is the headquarters of Bank of America. And Bank of America decided to look inward and find out, what is it that we have been doing? We've been here for so long, and yet our community has the lowest social mobility. And they checked their HR practices, and they discovered that they tended to hire from other communities. So they were perpetuating the same vicious cycle, because the children of this community didn't, they don't exactly have the same, they don't have it. So we go and hire. They now decided that they would start picking students from that community, exposing them, giving them internships, training them, and gradually you saw that, that mobility thing began to change. So in my humble opinion, the primary responsibility of government to its citizens is to prioritize the above four needs above every other direct expenditure. Clearly, resources are scarce. Government simply cannot afford to finance every need of the people. However, if it can address security, if it can address food security, if it can address social mobility, and if it can address education, then it can begin to formulate policies that will address the remaining. So I am an investment banker. We invest significantly in infrastructure development. But what I'm saying to you is that if we don't fix the social investments that are necessary, all that infrastructure will not do anything for us. Remember that with appropriate policy framework to incentivize domestic and foreign investments, we can fix the big needs. What are these big needs? Infrastructure investment to support economic activities, industrialization to diversify away from crude oil dependency, by formulating an industrial master plan aimed at fostering economy diversification, enhanced and strengthened justice system, fostering and incentivizing innovation and creativity. I am saying, let's fix these ones with policy, but let government focus its scarce resources. We know the resources are scarce. Focus the scarce resources on social investments. Make sure that the people are safe. Make sure that, I think we should have compulsory education at least to JS3. By the way, free and compulsory. Should be free and it should be compulsory. Provide education, provide the social security, provide a sense of safety, and provide social mobility. Go into communities and begin to, implement programs that can desegregate and mix the people up a little bit. And we also, who are in the private sector, I gave the example of Bank of America, we, the companies, we who are in the charity, who run charities, can do the same. If we work and we focus attention on these things, we create an environment in which then we can attract investments from outside. In conclusion, with proper planning and long-term vision, Nigeria can create an environment where success is not left to chance, but fostered by policies that encourage entrepreneurship, innovation, and economic inclusivity. Generational income growth is driven by several key factors, and these can be consciously developed with political will and sustained effort. These factors once again include education, access to capital, social mobility, meritocracy, and equal opportunities for women, youths, and those from poor households. Infrastructure development addressed largely through policies that will encourage private sector investments. Innovation and technology, encouraging innovation, particularly through technology, can be a major driver of economic growth. Countries that invest in research and development and provide infrastructure for tech startups see higher rates of entrepreneurial success. And finally, policy stability and good governance. A stable policy environment encourages both local and foreign investments, which are crucial for economic growth. Corruption, policy inconsistencies, and political instability have historically undermined Nigeria's economic progress. By addressing these factors, our nation's families can create a foundation for consistent generational income growth, allowing each successive generation to build on the achievements of the previous one and drive sustainable economic growth. As I close, I want to go back to a very important point that our convener made when he introduced this event today. It is not that the poor are not working. It is not that they're not earning. It is not that they're not saving. It is that nobody has taught them what they should be saving in, where they should be directing their investments to, which communities they should be mingling with, which kind of schools they should be looking to get their children, attend. In closing, I remember when I was raising my children. By the grace of God, my youngest is 26, so I've done a good job so far. Thank you. When I was raising my children and I would go for their open day, after looking at their work, I would pick subject by subject and I would say, who is leading the class in this subject? And then my child will say, Tolani. And I will say, is she your friend? Child is, I said, so who is your friend? She will name, I say, when next I come to school, you and Tolani must be besties. I'll go to the next topic. Who is leading this class? Until we, as Nigeria, begin to foster that kind of connectedness between those who have and those who do not have, we will not begin our journey to unlocking economic potential. There is knowledge to be shared. There are connections to be shared. There are opportunities to be shared. And we're done eating alone. Thank you very much and God bless you.